biotech analyst here at Evercore ISI. Very pleased to be joined by BioCryst, a company I've known for a long time. We have the full team here, so we're a little behind. We're going to kick it off and maybe go a little over just to make up for that. So my apologies. Just for those new to the story, John, can you just give us a quick overview? I've known you for a long time, but maybe not everyone has, and just keep it high level because we'll get into some questions after that.
Sure. First off, Lisa, thanks for inviting us. It's great to be here with you. We had a really great slate of high quality investors today in our one-on-ones, so really appreciate being invited to your conference. And with me today is John Booth, our Chief Communications Officer, Anthony Doyle, our CFO, Charlie Geyer, our Chief Commercial Officer, and Bill's here with me in the office, our Chief Medical Officer. We're all going to be making some forward-looking statements. Those statements have risks, and the risk factors can be found on our website. So for those that aren't familiar with our company, you're in for a treat because I think we're a company that's been around for a while and is really transforming. And it really all starts with a world-class drug discovery team and platform that they have built that allows us to go after really challenging targets to bring forward oral drugs to patients that suffer from rare diseases. And those targets can be serine proteases like plasma kallikrein and factor D, or kinases like we're looking at it with an ALK2 inhibitor for FOP. And where that's led us to is we're now a commercial company as well as an R&D company with our first oral drug in the market for HAE, ORLADEYO, and we're off to a fantastic launch in COVID that hasn't slowed us down, and we believe that we will ultimately be the market leader in prophylaxis treatment for patients suffering from HAE, and we can certainly talk more about that today. And then right behind it is an oral factor D inhibitor. And what's wonderful about this is it's a pipeline in an entire molecule. We're in clinical trials in 4 different indications right now. You saw this week that we dosed our first patient in one of the 2 pivotal studies in PNH, and those 4 indications, that's just getting started. There are many, many beyond that we have the opportunity. And then probably the last and very important point is we have the capital to be able to invest and really create significant value. And we did that through a financing that Anthony led with the $350 million of additional capital coming in from Royalty Pharma and OMERS, the pension fund in Canada, and 2 really savvy investors that see real value in our company.
Excellent. So let's talk about ORLADEYO to start with. John and I were just having a back and forth about. John and I were.
We lost you. We lost you.
Oh, yeah. Turn background noise. There we go. John and I were having a back and forth today about comments made by Takeda, and I think they've, said there's some back and forth, kind of patients switching back and forth both ways. But ultimately, we've seen their share erode by 17% last quarter, I think 8% for the year. So you're clearly, seem to be taking some share from there, right? And you've got other new pages coming on. I mean, things are going well. What makes you believe and leaves you so confident that you're going to end up being, the market leader for prophylaxis of hereditary angioedema?
Yeah, let me start and then I'll pass it to Charlie with some of the market research that we've done. But, he did market research. You remember this, Lisa, 2.5 years ago, where he said, even if patients are really satisfied on their injectable prophy therapy, they're going to switch to our drug. And guess what happened? What's happening in the marketplace? Exactly that. And I'm not surprised that Takeda's talking about us because a good chunk of it's coming from their product, right? Takhzyro. And these are people that are really well controlled on these injectable prophy drugs, but they want more. And when they switch to our drug, guess what? They do really well on our drug as well. But they're only taking a capsule a day versus injecting themselves or infusing themselves with their therapy. So that's a winning strategy, and it's playing out that way in the marketplace. I'll let Charlie talk about what he sees with the survey work that we've done with doctors.
Yeah, so Lisa, the latest survey, just as John was saying, just continued what we saw before launch. So we did in August another 60 physicians, very much in line with our tier 1 prescribers. So average of 7 to 8 HAE patients each. And what they said is, first of all, the launch is going well, but we asked them 12 months from now, what do you expect to be doing with these 7 or 8 patients? And they see ORLADEYO becoming the most prescribed amongst that group with the exact same trends that we've seen to date. So a little more than half of those patients switching from existing injectable prophy drugs, and then the rest of them growing the prophylaxis market, switching over from acute only. So we just keep hearing the same thing in the research. We're seeing the results in the marketplace, and so that's what gives us the confidence about where we're going.
Excellent. And what kinds of any seasonal trends starting to emerge that you're seeing? Did you see any kind of dampening things in the summer? And should we expect any sort of holiday trends, or is it really hard to tell with this overlying, pandemic and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think the trend we're seeing is that it's steady growth quarter after quarter after quarter, which is beautiful to see. So Charlie's team is adding a really consistent number of new patients every quarter, and that's significantly greater than the patients we're losing to discontinuations. And so the curve just keeps going up and up and up each month in terms of total number of patients. So that's a beautiful curve to see. So we're really not seeing any seasonality, any effect. And I think what gives us a lot of excitement about this is that we did all this in COVID, right? So, I know there's a lot in the news today about the variant in the US, but so what for us? We'll continue whether, we're restricted by COVID or not. We're going to continue to keep growing and adding more and more patients each month and each quarter.
I was taking a look at consensus, and it's up to about 192 million for next year. Are you feel like that's realistic? You're off to a great start, obviously. Just wondering how you're feeling about estimates for next year.
Yeah, I don't want to comment on the estimates yet because I want to have our own guidance come out before I do that. And I would say that this has been a tough one for you guys to get right, and because there's a lack of data, right? We have the data, you don't. So that we want to make sure that when we guide, we accurately guide you, and we'll be doing that soon for next year once we have the full year of this year, and then a real sense of what we're going to do outside the U.S., because that could be a contributor next year as well.
Well, that leads perfectly into my next question. So talk to us about your plans specifically in Europe. I know you've got a partnership in Japan. What are you expecting sort of from these two major other regions?
Charlie, you want to talk about maybe starting with the UK and then moving through Europe?
Yeah, and Lisa, we are, as you know, we're launching Europe ourselves. We've built the teams, and the launches are underway. So the UK launch is that's the one that's happening right now. So we got positive recommendation or positive coverage from NICE a couple months ago. As of late November, that has been implemented. So patients are now converting from our expanded access program to reimbursed product, and then new patients who meet the criteria, which is 2 attacks a month or more for ORLADEYO. It's a big opportunity because existing patients or existing drugs in the marketplace were only covered for 2 attacks a week or more. And so there are a lot of patients who can now move to prophylaxis on ORLADEYO. So that's getting going. The German launch is underway, and we're starting to see some good progress there. We expect in 2022 it'll be more meaningful contribution. Long term, we expect international to be 20 to 30% of peak sales.
Talk to us about sort of what pricing you're seeing in Europe relative to the US, and then also what's the competitive landscape in Europe?
So real key thing to our strategy ex-US is it's really about volume. We want to make sure that we maximize the number of people that can be on ORLADEYO, can be benefiting from prophylaxis with a oral once a day. And what we see is the trends are going in that direction. So the interest in being on prophylaxis is very high, and we expect ORLADEYO to accelerate that. So the prices are going to be lower, but they're still, good prices, and it's going to lead to really meaningful revenue.
Yeah, one of the things that you see in Europe a lot is restricted use on expensive medicine, and our strategy is very different than our competitors, where we want the least restrictions possible to get the broadest use, and so that requires a bit more negotiating. But I think in the end of the day, we're going to get way more patients as a result.
Okay. Excellent. So what other countries do you think will come on board next year? You talked about the UK and Germany now. How wide do you think that can get for next year?
Well, so we'll have several launches around Europe. So we'll be getting final pricing in France. We'll be going into the Nordics, Nordic countries. We'll have launched through our partners Neopharm in Israel in the early part of the year. And this is all part of the long-term strategy. Is we're going all around the world. So we've got filings in Canada. Switzerland. So what you're going to see is every year multiple launches and multiple filings coming for ORLADEYO.
Excellent.
Yeah, Lisa, I talk about the steady drumbeat of news. This is one facet of it, right? Enrollment in trials is going to be one, and then approvals in other countries, launches in other countries, filings in other countries, revenue. There will be a steady drumbeat of news coming out of BioCryst.
I was speaking with Intellia earlier today, and they're working on a gene edit, you probably know, for hereditary angioedema. So it'll be interesting how that, it's still a ways away, but it'll be interesting to see how that.
Yeah, I think in the competitive space, Lisa, the question that investors have to ask themselves is, what additional benefit are you going to add to a patient who, as Bill describes it, is on a safe, well-tolerated, controlled their attacks once a day oral capsule? What incremental benefit are you going to get, and what risks in the case of gene therapy, are you willing to take? Do you really need, a cure through gene therapy when you're controlled the way I just described the profile on our drug? I don't think so.
And, initially people will be more cautious, and then we'll have to see how it plays out from there. If it goes by safely and there's no issues, then I'm sure it'll be adopted in wider fashion. But, we'll have to see how it all plays out, obviously. But anyway, we're still years away from that. But that's the big transformative thing to the field, I think. A lot of people ask me about KalVista and things like that, but I really look for transformative things, just like ORLADEYO was, and that's probably the next one out there. But again, that's I guess choices are good. Everybody wants different things. Let's move on to 9930. I've always seen this as the really big long-term value driver for BioCryst. I can see Bill smiling there because I know he's a hematologist, so right up your alley. Tell us about the new phase two data that you've gotten.
Sure. Well, we're thrilled with the results. Recently, we looked at the results in our population of patients not on a C5 inhibitor, and also patients having an inadequate response on a C5 inhibitor. Through the lens of the endpoints and the way they're calculated in our REDEEM-1 and REDEEM-2 pivotal trials. And when we do that, we blow it out of the water with regard to the primary endpoint, the key secondary endpoints, and importantly also patient-reported outcome of fatigue score in our planned placebo-controlled study. And that has the opportunity to get a claim on the label, actually. So we're very, very confident of a positive efficacy outcome in our pivotals based on the data we've generated so far in proof of concept.
Yeah, and that's 15 patients, and we blow it out of the water. And it's an objective endpoint. So the chances of us having success in the pivotals is really high.
So Novartis has iptacopan, which is just a little bit ahead of you guys, slightly different. It's oral factor B, your oral factor D. Can you maybe talk to us about any sort of inherent differences there, or is it really too early to tell? And can the market really absorb more than one oral product? Maybe you can expand there.
Sure. I'll tackle the first couple of things. Factor D is unique in that the active site of the catalytic area of the enzyme has a conformation that is different in the circulating form of factor D before it binds to its substrate. So that creates an opportunity to drive better specificity of your oral small molecule enzyme inhibitor against all of the other serine proteases in the body, of which there are hundreds. That's not the case with factor B. So that may translate into a better off-target toxicity profile. The data that has been put in the public domain on the factor B inhibitor is good too. And it's not just about PNH. Complement dysregulation diseases driven by the alternative pathway is a long list, and the overall market opportunity can certainly absorb more than one oral, safe, effective compound if it comes to that.
Yeah, and so not only is it a huge market, I mean, beyond PNH, right? It's billions when you look at all the other indications, and that's certainly big enough for two parties to play in. But if I were betting on a company that could compete, that has to convert people from injectable therapy to oral, I'd bet on Charlie and Charlie's team, right? And who's shown that they can do this better than him, right? And so we're not afraid of Novartis at all.
Yeah, you can tell Novartis is pretty excited about iptacopan. So
Sure.
they designated an entire couple-hour session, actually, to it earlier this year, which was, I thought, interesting. It really speaks to the opportunity. So you're starting in PNH. You've got your phase 3 kind of starting there. What's the trial design? Walk us through. I know you've got 2 studies. Walk us through those 2 studies and kind of what's the timing of data from here now?
Sure.
I'll get us out of this.
Yeah, get us out of that. So odd things happening in my computer laptop, but the regime 1 and regime 2 studies, first of all, both agreed with the regulators. They're both randomized controlled trials. Regime 1 is an active controlled superiority design in patients who have had an C5 inhibitor based on the fact that they're still anemic. And the randomization is continue the C5 inhibitor for 24 weeks or swap to oral BCX9930 monotherapy. And the primary endpoint is change from baseline, averaged at the week 12, 16, 20, and 24 visits. Patients then all get drug through 52 weeks for long-term safety follow-up, and patients who benefit remain on the drug after that. Regime 2 is a placebo-controlled study. The primary endpoint is change from baseline in hemoglobin at the 12-week visit. And similarly to Regime 1, then patients all get our drug. The difference in patient population is these in Regime 2, patients are not on a C5 inhibitor. The vast majority, we expect, will be completely naive to C5 inhibitors. So they will more or less replicate what we saw in our naive population in the proof of concept. So very straightforward designs. Sample sizes are relatively small, 81 for the first study, 57 for the second. And we're up and running in screening in sites already. We intend to have these studies in multiple sites in multiple countries around the world. So very exciting.
You want to cover Renew quickly too? Because there was a lot of investor interest in that.
Yeah. The nephritis proof of concept study Renew has 3 indications: C3 glomerulopathy, IgA nephropathy, and primary membranous nephropathy.
Your basket study.
The basket study, just for efficiency's sake, we qualified patients on complement deposition in the kidney based on a recent biopsy, as well as the other diagnostic features of each disease. And they're very comprehensive complement profiling and disease profiling through the study. There's appropriate focus on proteinuria and what happens to kidney function. And we expect to be able to see that in just not very many patients at all. So up to 14 patients each for each of the 3 indications, and screening has started in that study.
Really interesting. When will we get data from that?
Not giving a firm date, but recent filings we indicated we expect to be able to fund all of the activity we just talked about and complete those efforts within the next 2 years.
So as you think about kind of this basket study of 3 different diseases, would you be looking to take each one separately into like a pivotal or just as a collection together?
Yes, indeed. So the diseases are quite different in age structure, in pathology. So our anticipation is that each will need a separate pivotal trial.
Okay.
So if you fast forward, Lisa, 2 years, we'll be, in the process of filing 9930 in PNH. We'll be moving into pivotal studies in 3 more indications and in nephritis indications, and we'll be well on our way to becoming the market leader with Orladeyo. That's a very valuable company.
Is geographic atrophy a potential indication here?
Not for us at the moment. I think that just in general, a lot of ophthalmic diseases, you think about intraocular or other local routes of administration. So we're not thinking about that right now for our oral drugs.
Okay. There was some activity there from Complement recently from Apellis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Okay. So I just wanted to touch upon 9250 and FOP. Any updates there? Are you planning, like, what's the plan there? It seems to be kind of a little bit in limbo, on hold. I know you're trying to get a little more drug supply, et cetera. What's the plan?
It's really increased drug supply and conduct chronic toxicology studies to enable chronic dosing studies in FOP patients. So that'll occupy essentially the rest of 2022, in fact.
Yeah, it's not on pause. We're just playing catch up because we didn't invest like we did with 9930 in drug supply and tox while we were doing the phase 1. So now we're playing catch up, but it's really exciting because the field is wide open. The need is huge. And we really like what we see so far in 9250.
Okay, I'll make a note to catch up with you in about a year on that one. Okay, so just to wrap up, what can we look forward to from BioCryst in 2022?
I think it's a steady drumbeat that I was talking about before. You're going to hear about, study enrollment. You're going to hear about, moving into new countries, and whether it's filings, launches. You're going to get revenue updates on the launch of Orladeyo. And, there's other programs that we're working on that we haven't even talked about, right? That will mature over time and that will make public at some point in time. So there's a steady drumbeat of news coming out of our company. The days of waiting for a binary clinical trial event are long gone.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for the time today. It was a pleasure as always, and look forward to following all the progress. Thanks everyone for joining the call today. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.